Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T, and today I'm talking about the Sarah Boone trial. Let me just ask that after listening to and or watching this video, if you find you enjoyed it, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, maybe consider a membership or a super thanks. And now, without further ado, let's dig in. Sarah Boone, a former clerical worker, was in court yet again today, looking very busy at the defense table. She was flipping through papers, taking notes, staring down at notepads, and at times smiling. Jury selection continues today. Over Monday and Tuesday of this week, 200 people were brought into the court for jury selection. 54 people left on Tuesday as potential jurors, and they're back today for further questioning in order to finalize the jury. Once the jury is seated, the case will move on to opening statements. Boone, as you may know, is accused of causing the death of her boyfriend, Jorge Torres Jr. She refers to him as George, on February 24th of 2020, after the two shared a bottle of Woodbridge Chardonnay, and then supposedly decided to play a game of hide and seek. The game ended with Boone zipping Torres into a dark teal suitcase in the living room of their Winter Park apartment before she went upstairs. Taurus died when he was unable to unzip himself from the suitcase, and when Sarah failed to let him out of it, even when she knew he was having trouble breathing. Sarah went upstairs and fell asleep, leaving Taurus in the suitcase. She claims she wasn't planning to fall asleep, and further, she claims that she believed Taurus could get out of the suitcase on his own. Then, when she went downstairs the next morning, she found him unresponsive in the suitcase. A medical examiner's report later stated that Taurus had been in the suitcase for up to 11 hours or more and ruled he died of a lack of oxygen. Definitely not a pleasant way to die. Now, yesterday, Tuesday, Sarah apparently made some snack requests, including 2 juice boxes, 2 bags of chips, a bag of candy, I wonder what kind, a Pop-Tart, really? And 5 peppermints. Yeah, exactly 5. Sounds like Sarah has a sweet tooth, or perhaps she's craving comfort food. Let me tell you, if I were locked away in a jail cell looking at maybe life in prison, I'd be slamming every Reese's peanut butter cup I could get my hands on. Maybe she wants to chow down on this stuff because of the stress she's under. According to her lawyers, she needs these goodies to keep her energy levels high for court. The request has yet to be granted. I get the feeling Sarah Boone is pretty high maintenance. Just my opinion. It's almost like she thinks she's a rock star and thus has the privilege to request her favorite foods for backstage prior to the concert. Yes, I know she probably does need her energy to be high, but boy oh boy, this is rather funny coming from Sarah Boone. I guess Woodbridge Chardonnay in court is not an option. Now, Boone's lawyers are her 9th set, and as a result, they are struggling with her defense. First of all, they're late to the case. Because Sarah tore through 8 previous attorneys assigned to her, this 9th legal team hasn't had much time to review the evidence. That's no fault of theirs, but it's causing them problems in the courtroom. I get the impression that the judge and the prosecutors have no sympathy for Sarah Boone because she's the one that got herself to this point in the process without a fully prepared attorney. That's on her. So Sarah's defense team wants to use that self-defense defense as well as the blank spouse syndrome defense. Think of the word flattered, but change the F out for a B. blank spouse syndrome, flattered spouse syndrome. I can't say the B word because YouTube doesn't like that. And frankly, I'm getting tired of them not allowing ads on my videos. However, Boone never mentioned this during her interrogations with the cops. In fact, she said several times that no one laid a hand on anyone that Sunday and that they as a couple had a really good day. Now, today, when Judge Michael Crayick asked Boone's attorneys what overt act of DV led Sarah to claim self-defense, the defense team did not want to say it. You see, in Florida, an overt act is required for someone to claim self-defense in a case where somebody was done in. For someone like Sarah to claim she did Taurus in out of self-defense under Florida law, she has to be able to show that she believed she was facing an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm at the time of the incident. And because of this belief of imminent danger, she used deadly force to protect herself. I guess in this case, the deadly force would be leaving him zipped up in the suitcase for fear that if he got out, he'd hurt her. But this is all provided that she was not the initial aggressor and provided she used a proportional level of force in response to the perceived threat. So again, in Florida, Sarah needs to have an overt act that Jorge Torres committed on that Sunday that led her to fear for her life. I'm sorry, but from what I know about this case and from the statements that Sarah made in her 2 interrogations in the beginning, I don't think that this is true. I don't think that this type of defense is going to work. What I'm trying to say is I don't think the jury is going to buy it. So eventually today, Sarah's defense team said that the overt act that Torres committed on that Sunday when he died, which led Sarah to fear for her life, is that he put 2 fingertips or part of his hand out of the suitcase at some point. Sarah and her lawyers are saying that upon seeing Taurus's 2 fingertips, is it appropriate to laugh right now? I mean, 2 fingertips don't sound very threatening coming out of that suitcase based on past instances of Taurus committing DV against her and based on her suffering unknowingly from that syndrome I mentioned earlier. Sarah feared that if Taurus got out of the suitcase, he would harm her. Her lawyers are saying that Taurus's hand coming out of the suitcase was almost like a weapon to Sarah because of the blank spouse syndrome. Boone's attorney further stated that during past instances of Taurus committing DV against Boone, he was inebriated. Thus, Sarah, knowing that Taurus had been drinking that Chardonnay on Sunday, and knowing that Taurus's alleged pattern was to commit DV after he'd been drinking, and because she allegedly suffers from that syndrome, Sarah did not let Torres out of the suitcase for fear he'd unleash his fury on her. That, in a nutshell, is the defense strategy that her lawyer wants to use. The prosecution is upset because this whole self-defense theory is new in the case. Sarah Boone, according to them, is now changing her story and testimony as to the events that went down on February 23rd into 24th of 2020, the day that Torres died. The prosecution said that if this is what Boone is going to say at trial, this is problematic because when she spoke to the cops, Sarah never mentioned Torres committing an overt act on that Sunday that would have led her to fear for her safety and life. In fact, in her follow-up interview at the sheriff's office the day after Torres died, Boone denied intentionally leaving him in the suitcase and said that the wine that she drank affected her thinking. Note that in her initial interview, Boone told the police that she was not drunk. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Don't take a match to her 'cause she'll explode. So in the second interview, she contradicted herself. Boone going to sleep that Sunday night is also problematic for the defense. According to an attorney, named Jessica Mashali. Mashali, who successfully argued in another case that a wife did in her husband because of this blank spouse syndrome. Someone who fears that they are in imminent danger would not go to sleep because a person can't defend themselves while they're asleep. The prosecution is frustrated that Sarah Boone keeps changing her story, and they said they know she may even change her story again during the trial. I bet she takes the stand during trial because I think she thinks she's smarter than everybody else. And I think she's confident that she's going to get off these charges. The state wanted the judge to rule that the defense cannot use this blank spouse syndrome. The judge, however, denied the state's request. The judge is saying the defense team can use this syndrome as well as the self-defense strategy. They can mention it during voir dire, which means jury selection, and that's going on right now, and they can mention it in their opening statement. But it sounds like during the actual trial, the defense will not be able to bring any expert witnesses to the stand to testify to this until they establish foundation for it. But note that it's going to be difficult for them to convince a jury that Boone suffered from this syndrome because of that video in which we see Torres calling out for Boone to let him out of the suitcase, saying over and over, "Sarah, I can't breathe." Boone mocks and taunts Taurus during the video, and then she goes to sleep. A prominent Central Florida defense attorney named Mark Najam said that most jurors don't accept the blank spouse defense because they say or they think, hey, you could have left. And again, instead of leaving her apartment that Sunday, Boone stayed there and she taunted Taurus. Najam said Boone might fare better in court by claiming she hadn't intended to do Taurus in, which would open the door for the jury to convict her of a lesser crime than second-degree blank. That's the Sarah Boone trial for today. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this and you want me to continue. If I make videos that nobody watches, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I'll see you next time on Bed Crime Stories. Now smash that like button.